Hi everybody, this is Didi from InTheKnowRadio.com, and today my very special guest is Donald Currie.
Hi.
Hi Donald, welcome to the show, and thank you
so
for
much.
coming.
It's so wonderful to be here.
Thank you. So Donald Currie is a certified master hypnotist, an NGH certified hypnosis instructor, an NLP practitioner, and a Reiki master. He also has certifications in diet, nutrition, human health and development, and global health issues. Donald facilitates courses in past life regression, life between lives, and energy release, pain management, rapid inductions, and smoking cessation. His experience as a practitioner and a facilitator has given him a great knowledge of the mind-body connection and has motivated him to share his knowledge and the power of the mind with others through education, clinical work, and products. Currently, Donald has written and produced over 30 hypnosis CDs and MP3 programs, which are all available for download. So, Donald, how did you first get into the world of hypnosis?
So I was working for Bank of Montreal. At the time I was in investment banking. I was extremely unhappy with my life. And so I started seeing a variety of different practitioners, Reiki masters, hypnotherapists, psychotherapists. And through doing my own work, I began to realize, it was on my third session of receiving hypnotherapy actually at the time, I began to realize that this is what I wanted to do with my life, that I wanted to help empower others to learn how to connect with their own inner strength and inner power, to overcome obstacles, challenges, and problems that were standing in their way in their lives.
Excellent. So what do you find most fascinating about working with people?
I find what is most fascinating about working with people is when they, especially with hypnosis, when they move beyond the conscious mind and all of those stories that they tell themselves, because we love to tell ourselves stories.
Absolutely.
And when they turn off all that mental dust and noise, and when they connect with that intelligence that resides below the surface of the mind, within the subconscious, when they connect with that intelligence, anything is possible.
That's true. Absolutely. Putting someone into the state of hypnosis is suspending, their current reality and opening them up to many possibilities. So what have you seen when you've worked with people and you've been able to bring them into that state where, other things that they hadn't imagined are possible?
Well, interestingly enough, I had a client that came into the clinic just recently who, she was there for something else, but she had broken her toe. And she said as a joke, while you're at it, could you do something about my toe because I've broken it and it's really sore? So we actually did some mind-body work with using the mind to connect with the body's healing ability to heal the toe. And 3 days later, I got a call from her, and she said, something extraordinary has happened. My toe is completely healed.
That's amazing, Donald.
So we know that this is in communication with every cell of the body.
And we're just learning how to utilize that.
Absolutely we are.
And probably you're doing more dehypnotizing than hypnotizing, because when we break a bone, we believe it's going to take whatever the doctor tells us a month to heal.
That's right. And there's actually research that's been done at Harvard Medical that has actually shown that using hypnosis, we can speed up the healing of broken bones about 3 to 6 times faster than if someone isn't receiving hypnosis, right? But it's so wonderful to have a case like that in the clinic where it just confirms.
Well, you also work with pain management, do you not?
I do work with pain management.
So what have you seen in terms of your clients when you work with their pain? Like, for example, what kinds of pain is hypnosis good for?
It's good for all kinds of pain. Anything from acute pain, injuries. If someone's undergoing chemotherapy and they're under pain or nausea, it works very well in those cases. It also is great for post-surgery. So if someone has had, I actually used hypnosis on myself when I had a hernia operation, but I do work with a lot of people who are post-surgery.
Right.
And it works very well for helping the body, number one, to heal, but also so that the person doesn't have to take as much medication.
Sure.
So they can heal a lot faster. It also works very good for migraines and headaches.
So tell me about that. So if you had someone who's And they don't know the cause of a migraine, but yet they've been suffering them. Some people have been suffering with them since they were 7 years old. Will hypnosis help someone like that?
Sometimes. The first thing is they have to go to their doctor and make sure that everything is okay, that it's
Yeah.
not
It's not a
something-
tumor or something.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
that it's not something more serious. A lot of the time, through my own experience with clients in the clinic, there is some sort of a feeling that is behind the migraine, whether that's intense anger or rage or stress that someone is carrying within the physical body, and the migraine is just a manifestation
Oh,
of
interesting.
that feeling that is within the body. So sometimes it can simply be that the person is genetically predispositioned to having headaches as well. So with hypnosis, we can teach the person tools that enables them to change their perception of the pain, or turn it down, or in some cases completely let it go.
I was going to say, if something happened to them when they were 7 years old,
Yes.
and would it be like the anger is trapped in there, or is every time they get reminded of an angry feeling that it activates the headache?
Most of the time it could be something in their environment that's re-triggering
Right.
that initial memory or reactivating it, right? And so with hypnosis, we can do things like age regression or inner child work that enables us to go in and then undo or work with that memory and repattern it so that they are no longer re-triggered in their current life and current environment.
And then do their headaches go away after that?
Most of the time, yes. Sometimes what happens is someone will go from a 10 out of 10 down to like a 3.
Which is very manageable.
Which is very manageable. And then a lot of the time, once they realize that it's a 3, then over time, it's something that gradually dissipates, right? That's what I've noticed the most with migraine sufferers, is that it usually goes from like an 8 to a
Well, I've
2.
had a few migraines in my life, so even if you can knock a couple points off of it, it's amazing. It's amazing stuff.
Absolutely.
So do you find that does everybody respond to hypnosis in the same way, or?
In the beginning, when I was first starting out, and I don't know if you recognize this or not, but it was like, most people would go into hypnosis, but you'd still have those cases where they wouldn't for whatever reason. I find that as you become more seasoned as a hypnotist, your technique and your skill gets better. So then you can work with a broader range of people. I would say probably like, maybe 19 out of 20 people go into hypnosis now. But everybody does respond to hypnosis differently. Some people have miraculous overnight healing. While some people, it takes them a little longer. It's more of a gradual, progressive change over time. But in my experience, almost everyone benefits from it in some way.
Yes.
Right? They may get this much of a change, or they may get more than they bargained for, more than they came in for. But I find that nowadays, especially because the perception of hypnosis has changed within the collective conscious, it's not voodoo or magic. We understand the neuroscience behind it now, right? So I think that because that is out there in the collective conscious, people are a lot more open to it, and so they're a lot more ready to change, I think. as well.
And plus, if they've made the effort to seek you out, they've already committed to change.
Absolutely.
So what does neuroscience have to tell us about hypnosis?
So we know that there are brain waves, that there are different levels of brainwave activity that occur when we have waking conscious state, which is referred to as beta. And then there is alpha, which is a focused state of awareness that we go into when we're driving or when we're playing sports or surfing the internet. And then there is deep relaxation, which is theta. And so we know that when someone goes into a state of hypnosis through brain scanning and brain imaging, that their brain waves are slowing down and going into either an alpha state or a theta state. Neuroscience is also showing neuroplasticity, that the brain is very much like plastic, and that there are new neural connections that are created when someone undergoes hypnotherapy or hypnosis. And the neural connections within the brain are our thinking patterns. So if there are patterns of negative thinking, then you're going to have neural pathways that are connected in a certain configuration. And if you start to introduce new thinking with hypnosis that is more positive, then what begins to happen is the brain actually starts to change itself. And you actually start to create these new highways or aqueducts or bike trails in the forest, however you want to see neural pathways. But you start to create those. And so neuroscience has given us a specific lens that we can now understand how hypnosis works better on a brain level.
Great. So you have extensive knowledge of this mind-body connection. So when it comes down to it, at that level, the hypnotic level, how much influence have you seen? I mean, we have that example of the lady with the toe, but just because one of your specialties is mind-body. So how much influence have you seen the mind have on the body, or how does it work at that deeper unconscious level, that connection?
Yeah, I think it's extremely high. Just through my own practice, I would say it's as high as 80%, if not more.
The connection itself?
Absolutely.
Okay, and how does the mind influence the body, both negative and positive?
Right. So I think that, if you look at our reality around us, everything starts with a thought, right? The chair that we're sitting on, someone thought about this first, the clothes that we're wearing, right? Even, your parents looked at each other and went, right? And so, I mean, our thoughts definitely become things around us. So if our thoughts are powerful enough that it can create all of this, imagine what it's doing inside of us.
Right. And I agree with you, because having my experience with hypnosis, people can tell you a story about a man who came in. He said, I just have to watch someone having an allergic reaction on TV and I break out in one.
Absolutely.
So he had to be very careful, because if he'd read something about in medical literature, he would actually have the reaction in his body. And he came to me for hypnosis to get rid of that, because he would just look at it and it would happen.
Right.
So it's pretty miraculous.
Interestingly enough, I had a client who came in for an allergy of dogs. And they would have a reaction when they would see a dog 50 miles away on the horizon that someone was walking, and all of a sudden they would start to go into this panic attack and this allergy, which they would break out in hives. And going into hypnosis and doing some root cause work, we discovered that when they were a child, they were attacked by a dog when they were very small.
Had they remembered that?
They had not remembered it.
Oh, isn't that fascinating?
And then they checked in with their mother, and their mother said, oh yeah, you had this woman who had this poodle, and you sat on its back and it bit you in the face. So so that person had completely encapsulated that memory and put it on the shelf and forgot about it. And it was only through hypnosis that they awakened that memory.
Again, panic attack. So it was an extreme feeling of fear, and then the body just went, yikes.
Started to react with hives, and almost like like the throat started to close.
Oh, it was almost anaphylactic.
Absolutely. So it's fascinating that it all starts up here,
It does. It does.
It all starts up here.
When you brought them back to the initial root cause and then cleared that up, was her allergy gone?
It was gone. Yeah, not right away, but over time it went away.
It was one of those that went down and then just trickled off.
That's right. She was fine with having dogs closer, but she would still get a reaction if she was in the proximity where they could touch her.
Right.
And it was like that for 1 or 2 months, and then it went away. And she's like, I don't believe it.
And how many sessions did that take?
It was about 5 or 6 sessions.
Isn't that amazing? We can completely reprogram the body with something as serious as an anaphylactic panic attack with a dog allergy.
It's remarkable.
What else have you seen? What other miraculous things have you seen as a result of hypnosis?
This one is amazing. So I had a client come into the clinic. It was probably about 2 months ago. And I actually got a phone call, and there was no one on the other end, or I thought there was no one on the other end, and it was someone who had lost their voice. Completely and totally lost their voice. Could not talk. They could whisper, and I started making out, okay, this is someone that wants to book an appointment. So we set up a consultation. She came in to meet me, and there was absolutely no voice that was present. She could not talk. And it had been that way for 2 years. And then she got her voice back. She went for speech therapy, and then she lost it again. So through our work together, we started to uncover, once again, root cause, doing regression work, that there were deep problems in the household growing up with her parents. Lots of fighting.
Right.
Lots of abuse, and not being able to speak up, and not being able to speak her truth and say what she was feeling, right? And so throat chakra closed down, and when something similar happened in her adult life, it re-triggered that within her body, and she lost her voice.
Did she have episodes of losing her voice when she was young as well?
No.
Or it triggered something and just...
Yeah, it just started, and she was probably in her late 30s, is my guess. So, so through doing release work and doing some inner child work, and giving that child the ability, first of all, to strengthen herself and strengthen her confidence, but then letting that child speak and speak her truth, everything opened up.
Got her voice back?
Got her voice back that night. She called me the next day, and I was like, "Who is this?" And she says, "Guess who?" I was like,
no!
Oh my goodness!
It is amazing.
It was amazing, and now she has her voice back fully. She was almost on the verge of losing her job. So obviously she kept her job. But yeah, it was extraordinary.
Fantastic.
I mean, I get goosebumps just talking about it.
And that's the power of it. Our mind has an influence on our bodies for sure.
It definitely does. And, the mind and body are so interconnected. I'm currently actually studying what's referred to as relational somatic psychotherapy.
Okay.
To sort of fit in with hypnosis. And they talk about there being the body mind, right? That there's actually the body's own intelligence. Right.
Okay.
And so, so the body mind and the subconscious mind are very much connected, right? And when something happens at a physical level, right, it affects the mind. And when something happens at a mind level, it affects the body.
It's a two-way system for sure.
Interconnected.
For sure. I had a lady come in, and she had a really bad skin condition where things would become so uncomfortable for her, right? That she couldn't wear clothes because it was just too uncomfortable.
Right.
Now this poses a problem when you have to get to work and get dressed every day. And when I asked the part of her, this is parts therapy for all those watching, you just kind of ask the part, like, where's this coming from? And at the mind-body level, it gave her a lot of things she needed to change. Now those things would seem simple to us, things like, you're a little bit too uptight. You got to loosen up. But to someone who's controlled and needs things a certain way, and they have their reasons for needing unconsciously, it's not the easiest task. But and she'd do good for 6 months.
That's
because she'd kind of get the information, but she'd never come back for a second session where we could work on her, like letting go a little bit, loosening up. So consequently, she'd do good for 6 months, come in again 6 months later. But again, she didn't stick around to actually work on the stuff that was causing it. So I just found it fascinating that at that mind-body level, it was actually the things she needed to change in her personality causing this, to, I guess, get her to do something about it.
Well, and the body is always communicating with us too, right? It's always there, and it's always communicating with us. And a lot of the time, people might be getting sick, or they might start developing a pain in their right foot, right? And all of those are signals. Pain is signal to the body. It's saying, hello, there's something that you need to take a look at here. Right? And so a lot of the time, if you start to tune in, and especially with hypnosis, and tune into the body and ask it what it needs, it will start to tell people, yo, you need to slow down. That's
a big one, isn't it? Nowadays, people are just trying to do way too much.
Absolutely. And we're not designed or meant to be as busy as we are. We need downtime. And thank goodness a lot of the Eastern philosophies are coming over with like doing yoga and meditation and all of these self-care activities that definitely help us to take care of our bodies, right?
And tune in and rebalance and reset everything.
Absolutely. But I find a lot of people come in with aches and pains or things going on, and when you get right down into the subconscious mind, the subconscious mind starts to say, you need to slow down, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. It's
or
amazing.
even change a relationship sometimes.
Absolutely.
And things
Yeah.
that they kind of know intuitively, but they just don't want to see
Yeah.
because changing the relationship involves starting out new. And sometimes people without adequate mental preparation are just not ready to take that. So they kind of like keep pushing it down, and then the pain keeps getting, bigger and bigger until they have to do something about it.
And because we're creatures of habit, right? Most people are afraid of rocking the boat because they want to stay
Right.
comfortable, even though their comfortable is actually uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right?
But it's better
They
to
stay
be
there.
uncomfortable and familiar
That's right.
than to venture out and, have a nicer life but be uncomfortable because it's new.
Exactly. And I always use the hand thing. If you do this the first time, right? You do this all the time, so it feels familiar.
Right.
If you move it one finger over, it feels uncomfortable.
Right.
But if you do it again the second time, it
Begins
feels
to get more
more comfortable, right? And the more that you do it, eventually it just becomes second nature. It becomes your new normal.
Right.
It's very much like that with any kind of change.
So you have done a lot of things with past life regression,
Yes.
venturing into the lives between lives.
Yes.
And we know from people like Brian Weiss and Michael Newton that sometimes people have to go back a little bit further,
Yes.
and they can have things like intense allergies or asthma, and then it could completely get cleared up by having a past life regression.
Yes.
So
It can.
what have you seen?
I've seen someone that came in for smoking cessation and completely didn't believe in past lives. And she came in for smoking cessation, and when we were doing regression to find the initial decision around starting smoking, she found herself back in Salem, and she was
Really?
standing in a line being led up to the burnings. She was actually burned at the stake as a witch, and she inhaled all of this smoke when that was happening.
And why would that want to make her smoke in this
I
life?
have no idea. It just felt familiar to her. That's what she said. She's like, oh yeah, it just felt familiar. The cigarettes.
She
Strange.
probably had a empowered state of mind as she was going up there, I would think. Because
Probably.
rather than being fearful, it must have been positive in some way.
Don't know. Anyway, we reprocessed that memory and released it, and she stopped smoking. And she did not believe in past lives, for whatever reason. And she's like, that was interesting. What was interesting about it? And she says, well, I want to say that it was a past life, but I don't necessarily believe in past life. And
Right.
I said, well, if it's a metaphor that your mind created, or if it's an actual past life, the healing that you receive, it can be very real. There was another woman that came in who used to get terrible pains around her neck. She used to get terrible cramping. And we were actually supposed to be doing this life regression, but once again it turned into
She popped
past life
in. Yeah.
regression. And she was actually hung by a noose. And when we were processing that life, her neck became red all the way around.
That's amazing.
And after the session, I had her look in the mirror because it was all red, all the
It
way
was
around.
actually manifesting that. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
actually manifesting and releasing something from the physical, spiritual, emotional body.
And so, did she ever have the problem again?
No.
And
So
that
she
was
said, so
just
yeah,
one
when she checked
session.
back in, just one session.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It is amazing, and I mean, not everything comes from past life. But,
No.
But I believe too, when you have training in something, then all of a sudden you're going to get those things showing up. in your
It
practice.
does happen. It does happen. So, what have you seen in terms of when people go to that in-between life state? The one that Michael Newton talks about.
Yeah, in between is when we're planning our lessons that we're going to be learning when we're coming into incarnation. And so a lot of people start to become aware of more the journey that their soul is on, and from a bird's eye view, all of the lessons that they're working with, right? There may be themes that they're working with, themes like oppression, or themes of being persecuted, right? That may be an ongoing thing, or a theme of being a villain, or a victim, right? And so from that higher perspective, you start to become aware of all of those lessons that the soul is learning. You also become aware of what the purpose is in this specific lifetime.
And that would help if they've gotten a little bit off track, wouldn't it?
It does. It definitely does help people who become off track. Or, there's a lot of people, especially at this time, that know that they're here for something greater. Our planet is in a lot of trouble at the moment, so there's a lot of people, a lot of souls that are sort of waking up to a greater perspective of what their life purpose is here.
Yes.
And a lot of people are here to make change.
So you've noticed a pattern of a lot of people coming down to say, to help the earth?
Yes, absolutely. And to help each other as well.
Yes.
There's a lot of helpers and a lot of healers that are out there that are just awakening. And how they heal is very different, right? It could be simply being a good friend for someone. Right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you hang a shingle, right? But a lot of people are waking up to that greater reality that we're all in this together, and that there's a greater purpose for all of us being here. And Life Between Lives is something that allows us to connect with that information.
And I think it makes it more bearable for people. I did past life regression with a gentleman who was having the most difficult divorce. And he realized in the end he had chosen that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he needed to have some learning around that. And once he discovered that and got back on track, he was, it made it a lot easier when he knew there was some kind of purpose behind it.
And also, when everything is your fault at that level too, right? It's like,
you chose it.
Yeah, exactly. But in a way, it's so empowering.
Well, it's empowering. It was empowering for him because he made the discovery.
That's right.
It wasn't me saying, "Oh, by the way, you chose that."
That's what makes it different than seeing a psychic for it, right? Is that it's coming through their channels, right, and through their own system. So
and they just get it. They're just like, "Oh, I get it." Oh, that's what they always say. It's, "Oh, I get it now." So it's very, very interesting.
It is.
Have you seen any sort of paranormal things happen or results occur as a result of hypnosis and putting someone into a other than ordinary daily trance?
Yes. I've seen some very interesting things that have happened, or what people would classify as paranormal.
Okay.
With especially around energy release.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you talk about energy release. So let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, so energy release is working with any energies that may be attached to the body. That could be a feeling. It could be energy, whether you want to classify that as a spirit or an entity or some other energy that's there. There's also what is referred to as fragments. So fragments of other people that may have attached themselves to you.
So tell us a little bit more about that, because that's very interesting, because I know we can leave fragments of ourselves. We have, and they call this soul retrieval in shamanic work.
That's right.
So I know we can leave fragments in places and experiences, but I didn't actually know that we could get fragments of people on us.
Absolutely, and it's called imprinting, right? We're constantly imprinting one another at a mind level, at an emotional level, at a spiritual level, and at an energetic level as well.
So how would they identify that there's a fragment or an imprint of another person with them?
So in hypnosis, when someone is in deep hypnosis, what we do is we do a scan of each of the systems. So we scan the physical body, we scan the mind, we scan the emotions, the feelings, and we scan the energy. And we look for any areas that feel off, or it doesn't feel like it's their energy that's there. And a lot of people experience this as sort of an area that may be dusty or dirty, or feels sort of sharp or fragmented in some way.
Okay.
And then we connect with that energy that's there, and we actually have a conversation with it.
Oh, how interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah.
And so does it reveal itself as a person?
Sometimes, yes. If it is, and sometimes things like to hide. So sometimes you have to really communicate with it and get it to speak up, because it's a planet of free will, once it's been discovered and it knows that it's been discovered, it knows that It has to go.
So the interesting thing is, because I know when we do forgiveness work,
Right.
person will be holding a grudge with someone that owed them money for 10
Yes.
years, and as soon as they forgive that person,
Yeah.
sometimes the person gives them the money.
Yeah,
So what have
exactly.
you seen is a result of someone releasing some energy?
Yeah. So it's courting, right? What tends to happen is, as well, this is very interesting. If you have someone who's sort of leeching your energy, like almost like an energy vampire, what can happen is if you unplug, you may notice that you get a phone call from that person.
Okay.
Right? Because they were sort of draining your energy, and
you've disconnected,
That's
so
right.
they feel it at
They
some
feel
level.
it, so they try to. That happens a lot with like exes. If someone
releases a piece of their ex, all of a sudden their ex will come back.
Right, because they want to
That's right. They want to
connect
keep the
in
cord.
back with you.
And we also refer to this as courting as well.
Also, if someone releases a piece of their mother, right, that was attached to them, or a piece of their father, then the relationship can change, right? So all of a sudden, mother might get softer and gentler, right, as a result of that. And
Yeah,
the
'cause you're-
relationship might have less friction.
You're clearing up the dysfunctional cords, is
That's
that not right?
Absolutely. And mothers always know which buttons to push, right? So there may be energy that's there, in her energy in that button.
So if they're not
by-
getting impacted, yeah.
That's right. And so a lot of the time doing that work will enable you to be able to hold yourself more confidently in situations and not be energetically drained by.
Or react
Absolutely.
to the buttons that they used to push. So what else have you seen that can be just astounding, or even kind of blew your mind in terms of what you thought was possible?
Well, there has been some people that I've worked with who've had what we would classify as like brutal trauma as when they were young, as children. And the pain that they carry and the difficulty that they have in life, they come in and it's almost like they feel like there's no hope. Right?
Yes.
And working with a lot of those people and helping them to let go of a lot of that that old trauma that's present, and then seeing their lives do a complete transformation. I think that that's so inspirational.
Oh, of course it is, because
Right.
if they've been that way for so long and nothing else has helped.
Absolutely. And so I've worked with many of those cases. So for me, there's nothing that's more incredible than
Sure, a total life turnaround.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great when you see, I've worked with athletes, and it's great when you see them achieve something like winning an award or scoring 20 goals in a soccer game. That's wonderful too, right? Or helping entrepreneurs build a business and become really successful. All of that's really wonderful. But when you're working with those people where it's almost like they just don't know what to do or where to turn.
Yeah, very
right?
hopeless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you see those people turn around completely and get their life back, there's nothing that's more miraculous than that.
Sure
When they-
beats investment banking.
That's right.
Yeah. When they connect to their own power, right? When they're reconnected to their own power and they realize that they can do
anything, that they don't have to live out that old story anymore.
Oh, that's amazing.
I think that's the most powerful. For me, that's the most miraculous. Yeah.
Now, if you had one thing with all your years of experience that you would like to share with our audience about just how powerful we are, or the power of our mind, what would it be?
My suggestion is really become the observer of your mind. Be really aware of the thoughts that you carry. I consider the mind to be like a garden. And in your garden, you can choose to water the flowers, or you can choose to water the weeds. Right? You wouldn't water the weeds. Instead, you would pick them out. Right?
Right.
So my suggestion would be, really do your best to disengage from negative thoughts, and don't water the weeds.
Right.
Water the flowers. Think positively, because every thought that you think is communicated to every cell of your body. And when that's communicated to every cell of your body, it makes you, when you think positively, you feel better, you feel more confident, and that's going to create an amazing life, right?
Excellent. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Didi. It was a pleasure.